The At Home Show.
Two star-crossed best friends. One passion for heavy metal home improvement. Could 1988 get any better? Listen, I know they met in 1998, and it wasn't in a bad B-movie ripoff of Ferris Bueller, but, go with it. From the non-existent Green Room Studio Films, and absolutely not directed by John Hughes. Welcome to the heartwarming story of the spring, The At-Homies. Not direct to VHS and not anywhere that you buy movies. Live from the Green Room Studios, from the spacious property of Bates Nursery and Garden Center, 3810 Whites Creek Pike, it's the At Home Show with Josh Cary and David Bates.
Simmer down. We're here every Saturday morning. It's okay.
You know you don't want them to simmer down,
No,
Josh.
get crazy out there. The mosh pit is going crazy over there in the Green Room Amphitheater. Welcome in, everybody. It is the At Home Show. I'm Josh Cary.
And I'm David Bates.
Moose is to the left. Travis is
Let's call him
across.
Legendary Travis.
Let's call him Tyler this week.
Okay, we'll call him Tyler this week. Everybody's around. We've got a plethora of things to get to this morning, but it's a little damp out there, David.
Well, it is a little damp, but not to worry. It's only a little damp. Today, of course, is Saturday, and we're going to have mostly cloudy conditions with a low of about 43 overnight, maybe even lower down to 41, depending on which forecast you want to believe, but somewhere in the lower 40s. But since it's overcast, there's no worry about cold weather or frost, that kind of thing. It's just going to be cool. Tomorrow on Sunday, it will be mostly sunny later on in the day, but it's going to start off with some morning showers. High of 65, 42 for the low. Monday, the clouds start to make a major retreat. 69 for the high, 45 for the low. Tuesday, 73, looking great. Then wait a minute, what's that 36-degree temperature?
Stop it.
What?
Then
we get to Wednesday, it only gets up to 55, 36 again.
Huh?
Oh, my word.
It's almost like it's spring.
It's the way it does, and it looks like we have mostly sunny conditions through the week, maybe a chance of showers later in the weekend. If next weekend's forecast means anything, there's a few showers in to that part of it, but all in all, it's going to be a cool, seasonably cool day with overcast conditions, 54 degrees here in the Music City, so no big deals, but if you are a person who lives in an outlying area and perhaps has the susceptibility to frost and freezes that come with when the forecasts are down there in the range of the mid down in the mid 30s here at Bates Nursery, we would expect to go probably to 31 degrees, which means we will have a light freeze. We'll be doing
a lot of prep work.
Well, at that temperature range, we can deal with it with respect to just using overhead irrigation. Now, we have to run it for many hours, but it does work. It keeps us from having to move most things. There are a few things that are particularly tender. If any tropicals we might have out, we'll have to move those in. Things like the Ito peonies that they're an herbaceous plant that come up with the little soft shoots. We don't want those to get loaded up with ice and break, so we'll likely have to load those up and take those inside.
Banana trees,
everything that's tropical will have to go back inside for a couple of mornings, and then maybe that'll be it.
Well, maybe. I pulled Lobiscus back into the porch the other day.
Don't forget your hibiscus.
Well, the Lobiscus is his name. It's a hibiscus.
Oh, is that just L-O?
L-O, yeah.
L-O biscuits. Okay, all right. Very good.
He's in there with Morimoto.
So this kind of weather right now, we've had some really warm temperatures recently, but it's been cooler a bit. This is where that phenomenon of what winter is it? So, what winter is it, Josh?
I would say that it might be the redneck winter.
No. We're beyond red bud winter, if that's what you were looking
No,
for.
redneck was where I was going.
Well, probably most people would call this
Mullet winter?
Dogwood winter.
Dogwood winter.
Yeah. Now, there may be a point in time, Josh, where people use a different set of standards to refer to these little winters.
Little winters.
Or, as the meteorologists refer to it, as singularities.
Singularities,
And what
they're smart.
Now, what a singularity is from a meteorological standpoint is that it's a common but not normal everyday occurrence, which is to say that about half the years you're going to get temperatures that are going to fall outside the normal range. In the summertime, and I don't know whether this is considered to be a politically incorrect term or not. It's not.
Go ahead. Come on, let's do it.
The Indian summer reference, which only means that late in the fall you're still having summer-like temperatures, but for this time of year it would be this would be dogwood winter, which would be the current singularity, which is just a cold spell that has happened well into the spring.
Because we're past the average frost date, man. We
are beyond it now, but that's the average. And here in the low-lying creek area where Bates Nursery is, and out in Whites Creek, we get frost when they don't get them in a lot of other places. In town, closer in town where I live. And
you got a little bit of elevation out here too. I mean, not terrible, but I mean, you're probably 8, 9. The total distance above sea level.
Well, we're at 430 or 415 feet above sea level. Not that much.
But you've got these hills and hollers around.
Well, we're down in the low creek bottom, so we do get that frost that tends to settle in, and consequently we have to deal with it. And when the skies really clear out, as they obviously are going to do come Wednesday morning and Thursday morning, that radiational cooling occurs, and that allows the temperatures to really drop on down there. So I will likely be up by around 3 a.m., which is not that unusual to have irrigation started and running.
But it used to be because that was just about bedtime.
Now, here's what people need to understand. That from a professional horticultural standpoint, we have the ability to do things that you might not be able to do at home. And as far as our ability to have enough pump power and enough volume of water at a sufficient pressure to be able to irrigate these things continuously from before it goes below freezing until after it gets back above freezing, that's the difficulty. It's not just washing frost off when you're experiencing sub-freezing temperatures. You're actually having to continuously sheet that with water that is perhaps freezing on there, but the trick is that it's holding that temperature right where the tender growth or flowers are.
Hold your hand still if you're holding it right there, David. Okay.
It holds it at freezing, because 32 degrees, Josh, is not just the freezing point of water. What is it also? It's the melting point of ice. That doesn't get, so what you're trying to do is keep it right at that point, so it prevents the structural damage to the surface of the leaves. You
don't want to break those cell walls, man.
You do not want to do that. It's always a bad experience when that happens.
So for folks that may have something like a vegetable garden going, say
above ground garden?
like me.
Yeah.
Now I don't live down in a kind of a valley kind of an area.
But you're in an outlying area.
So probably need to cover that up.
It'd be a good idea, and so it's good to take a moment to refresh our memories on the way you might approach doing that should it be necessary. Now, forecasts are subject to change without notice. They don't ever check with me. I will tell you that.
They should.
Yesterday we were talking about frozen precipitation on Wednesday.
Yeah. What?
Yeah.
They were. You know who they are.
Shut your mouth.
It was either channel 2, 4, or 5.
Now you have
might have been 17.
You have like a little raised garden area, correct?
That's right.
Michael? So what you could do, and what I see that's a fairly easy thing to do, the problem with garden plants is that you're dealing with very tender. They're not woody kind of plants like shrubbery, that kind of thing. They have little physical structure at this stage of the game to be able to support the weight of anything, even a sheet. So you probably need to put some other kind of structure up in order to drape the sheet over the top of that.
So the stakes that I have in the ground for the tomato plants, I just drape the sheet over that.
That will work.
Could work.
You want there to be no direct contact, particularly if you're using plastic in the equation anywhere, because it can actually freeze on contact straight through where the plastic touches. So you want to, it's all about fingers and touches and spaces and that kind of thing.
Okay. I think I'm gonna ask David to go over there near the used plastic pot pile and maybe pick up 5 or 6 of those. If it'd be something.
Well, and that's another thing you can do is you can take another used container, 1 gallon container, and
these little
invert
babies
and just put it right over the top of it. That might be enough in of itself, or you at least can put that down and put a sheet or something over the top of that. So we're not expecting,
because I don't think the dill that I planted last weekend is going to be big enough to support a sheet,
no,
especially an 800 thread count sheet. I mean,
that's a really good quality. That's Egyptian cotton too.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be Egyptian quality. I don't think the little baby basil plants are going to probably be strong enough to do that. I don't, and
I think you can go down the list and say none of them will.
Oh, really?
Well, not in and of themselves. You don't want to put it. You don't want them having to support it.
Mm-hmm. Did you put a cage around your tomatoes?
No, I sent you some.
Stakes.
I sent you some pictures. You can see the stakes in it.
Yeah, he's got stakes on there, and the stakes are well above the top of the tomato.
It's big dowling rods.
So those will work perfectly well. Anyway,
at porterhouse stakes.
Yeah.
Just be. That's great. That's great broadcast right there where you turn your
For everybody
at home, he's showing Josh. 615-499-6690. And that's the way if you want to text us a question, or if you got a comment you want to make, or if you want to call, you can call and leave a voicemail, or if we can catch it, you can leave a message. We can call you back, and you can be live on the air right here with us.
Live on Saturday morning?
Live on Saturday morning from 8 until 9 a.m. Central Time every Saturday. Here in the Green Room, the at-home show with Josh Cary and David Bates. That would be moi. And we're going to go to our first little feature here. But before we do
Is
that,
it a little feature or a featurette?
Featurette sounds better, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Well, we're going to go to that, but what we're going to do first is we're going to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart. And if you're a serious gardener, it's about what you plant things in, and that's when we want to talk about Earth Mix garden products. And if you're wanting to use the most organic approach and get the best growing results out of what you're planting, you want to use Earth Mix. Earth Mix is made with all the best organic substances from the supernatural compost that has a blend of wonderful things in it, including mycorrhiza, fungi, and humic acid that are added.
That's good on a cracker too.
Not so much, but it's great in the soil because your plants need those beneficial microorganisms to create those abilities to be able to uptake the naturally occurring nutrition that's in the soil. So in addition to being naturally nutritive themselves, they also enhance the ability of your soil to be able to uptake the nutrition that's readily available, not just out of the ground, but also out of the air. So Earth Mix garden products give you a great ability to do that, whether you use Earth Mix Supernatural to improve your garden bed that you perhaps planted last year. They're ready-to-use products such as Earth Mix Garden or Proganics O, or maybe you're planting trees and shrubs and you just want to use Earth Mix Landscape. All of these products are all organically produced, sustainably produced. And if you're thinking about tropicals, you're going to want to use Proganics I. And Proganics I is really good. It has no peat in it at all, nor do any of the other Earth Mix products. And we think that's important because peat's not a renewable resource. So coconut coir, they're growing a lot of coconuts these days, so that's readily available, and it doesn't attract fungus gnats. So when you've got things in the house, if you've ever had those little gnats, the peat moss attracts those, and the coconut coir does not. So for the complete line of products, make sure you go out to earthmix.net. You can click on the products tab up there. If you want to see where you can find it around the middle Tennessee, Kentucky, and even on up into Indiana and Ohio, you can go to the map there and see all the pins on there. My map will refresh here in a second, but
sure it will.
At least I believe that it will. It doesn't appear to be doing so, but
it's going to be okay. It's
all over Middle
baby.
Tennessee. The one thing you got to know is that you can't get it in a box store. You have to go to an independent dealer because these are where the real plant professionals are. So you can go out to any of the great folks around town. More and More Garden Center, Martin's out in Murfreesboro, South Branch also out in Murfreesboro. Yes. A lot of great folks around. Check out the map. Something going on with my computer screen there, and it won't update all of the places there. But make sure, remember this: success in gardening begins at the ground level when you use Earth Mix garden products. And thank you for your giving us a moment to talk about that. I think it's time for a plant rant.
A plant rant?
Yes.
With Cary Gant?
Yes. Let's go, Cary. Right there we are. Good morning, Cary.
Good morning.
Okay,
Good morning. I loved your intro this morning. That was exciting.
Well, we want to make sure people understand that you're not just a person that happens to sell plants. You're a very passionate gardener, specifically with regard to the tropicals, and that's where you are right now. And you're in You're in the area of cacti and sedum, so tell us about what the area you're in right now.
I'm in my favorite aisle, actually. To the left of me, you'll see all of our smaller cacti and succulents. And now let me pan behind me to my favorite cactus that we have in stock right now. Can you see her? The Peruvian apple cactus. I actually have 5 of them at home. Can you see how tall it is?
I can. It's much taller than you are.
It is. Well, it's on a little stair step, so it gives it a little height, but I am a little bit short, so yeah, it does have a lot of height.
Cary, what was it called
Mine
again?
at home has gotten to about 20 feet tall. Peruvian apple cactus.
Oh, my.
Yeah, and you see those used a lot in Mexico and in South America, Central America. They use them along walls, and they really do have a very nice look planted close together to make like a little narrow, upright visual break.
A Peruvian barberry.
It's kind of like a cactus
Peruvian
hedge.
apple cactus.
You do see them
there's actually a fence post cactus that people use. We had one that I've seen us get in stock since I've been here.
What's that in your hand there?
It's a blooming cactus that I found this morning. I'm going to try to get her a little bit closer.
That is
so for those of you who didn't know cactus flower, they in fact do.
And there's nothing more beautiful when cactus are in bloom. Now, they don't stay in bloom a long time, do they?
No, they don't. They usually open for a day, maybe 2, and a lot of them are night bloomers, which is kind of cool. So I've had to stay up late to see my Peruvian apple cactus bloom.
Right.
You'll miss it if you go to bed early.
That was your excuse for staying up late.
Right.
Oh, no, I can't go to bed yet.
I was late this morning.
The cactus are going to bloom. I'll miss it. We can't have that.
I gotta wait to see that beautiful bloom. But yeah, they're gorgeous when they open, especially, let's pan back to these behind me. Here we go, moving slow. Back to our Peruvian apple cactus. They have a nice giant white bloom that's actually bigger than my hand.
Wow.
Yeah, they're gorgeous. So we actually have 3 in stock at Bates right now.
Oh, that's very cool. Now, let me ask you this. What's the most common issue you see? A lot of people are interested in cacti and succulents. What's the biggest issues that people who are interested in growing them are apt to face?
Overwatering. That's the biggest thing, and drainage. A lot of people put stuff in pots that don't have holes. Then they'll go to water their cactus. Some people come in and have problems and say they water their cacti once a week, which is way too often, especially in the winter.
Right.
In the winter, I probably water mine twice through the season, really, through the winter.
So, and you also have to have cacti and succulents in a very high light situation. In the sunniest place, you can't really have them in an overly sunny spot. They need as much as they can possibly get. And not having enough light also makes them much slower to dry out, correct?
Slower to dry out, slower to grow, and they'll grow even smaller. They'll get really skinny because they're trying to find light, and they'll kind of grow into a weird pattern. Now, succulents can tolerate a little bit of lower light than cacti. Some of them actually like to have indirect light. You can burn those. But cacti specifically, all the sun they can get.
Now, for folks who are perhaps wanting them but don't have a window that gives them enough light, they can do some things like artificial lighting. You know, we've done a lot of that here in the studio with LED lights that give you the ability to add some needed lumens that would give you the ability to grow a cacti or a succulent in a house or an apartment that might not have enough light otherwise. And you would need to do that if you don't have a really sunny window.
Absolutely, yeah. You can use grow lights, but when it gets warm outside, you can put your cacti outside. And if you do have a yard or a porch with a little bit of space. Now, like you guys were talking about earlier on the show, we do have some more frost possibly coming up. I wait until mid-May to move most of my cacti out, especially the ones that weigh a couple 100 pounds, because I don't want to have to move them back in.
Yeah, I get that. Well, now you talked about the problems with overwatering. It's not the overwatering issue and poor drainage and not caring for them properly also creates a lot of fungus and rot problems in cactus and that's usually a really clear indicator that the soil, I mean, they need to get completely dry between waterings, don't they?
Oh yeah, completely dry. And you'll notice if your cacti starts to get like yellowing spots, especially down around the base, that's a good sign of rotting. If you've got gnats in your soil, that means your moisture is way too high and you need to take it down. Unfortunately, once they start to rot,
hard to turn it around.
All over from there. Yeah.
Now, Cary, they're not particularly deep rooted either. Any of the cacti, right?
No, not most of them. Some of them go a little bit deeper than others, but a lot of them are pretty shallow. And they like to be in smaller pots, so they want to be really, really root bound.
It's like some people on shows that are a little shallow.
Little shallow?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Just a little.
I'm looking at these guys over here.
Hey,
Right over there.
he'd be looking at the one to my right.
All right, so what else you got to share with us this morning?
Yeah, I'm going to slowly walk you this way.
Okay.
I've got my Vanna White handout.
There you
Here we
go.
go. We're going to walk over into the Palm Island. Now, we have a lot of people coming in asking about palms because they want to put them around their pool, put them outside. Now, a lot of palms don't like to be in full sun, like blasted for 6+ hours a day. And if you do want to try that, I'd say your best bet is to go with the Robolini, the pygmy date palm. And you have to slowly adapt that to that bright light. So instead of just buying it and just sticking it by your pool out in full sun, you'll kind of want to acclimate it slowly to that full sunlight.
Yeah, and to your point, when growers are growing these palm trees, they are growing them under a shaded structure with the intent that they'll be used indoors. So it's not that many of those palms cannot take the full sun. They have not been acclimatized to growing in full sun. They've been trying to acclimatize them to be able to tolerate the lack of light. So if you take one, when a plant, be it a palm or whatever, is in a lower light condition, the foliage always gets a little larger and a little more lush feeling. And because of that, it's less capable of dealing with the harsh sunlight. So
don't want to get sunburned.
So, and if you go straight out in full direct sun, it will burn them. You'll get scorched spots on them. It won't kill them, but it'll make them look bad.
I actually have some right here. Ooh, there they are. These actually got hit by our heater in here because they're up a little high. They got put in front of the heater. And we'll clean her up. She's going to look fine.
I guess we know what not to put in front of the heater now, don't we?
We have learned our lesson now. Yes, we have.
Flammable
but it'll get a similar look. And you can always cut them back. Just take the leaves down, and then it'll grow new leaves. But, a heater or the sun can burn
They
your
both
leaves.
create an overabundance of temperature.
And they tend to dehydrate things really well.
Yeah, that's right. So, all right, Cary, anything else you got for us this morning?
One more thing real quickly.
Sure.
I just want to show you all the tropicals that we have that we've arranged back here. I don't know if you can see over my left shoulder here, but we have all the mandevilla. We have a few Boston ferns left. We are selling out of those very quickly.
Now,
so
we're going to have more back in this week.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're going to have more back in this coming week. So
are we sure this week?
Well, we're hopeful. You know, the
Hold him to it, Cary.
The
Okay.
difficulty for this year is, and I think it's a note worth putting out to everybody, is that plants are in short supply. And Julie Patterson, who is our green goods goddess, without Julie, we couldn't function. She really keeps things rolling in here, but she can't physically create the plants. So there's a lot of competition for plant material out there, and we do a good job of competing favorably for that. But we sold through almost all of the fern baskets we got last week. Hopefully there will be more coming in on the trucks that's coming in.
Did I see a bougainvillea back there last week?
Yes, you did. Let me take you on a stroll. Hopefully I'm not moving too fast.
No,
and I'm
no.
walking backwards, so I'm using my dance skills right now. All right, here we go. Ooh, going through the ferns. Oh, we do have some more mandevilla to my left. Get down low. We're about to walk past. Oh, catching up. There we are. Oleander over my left shoulder.
Wow.
And we've got some in bloom right now. Can you guys see her?
Bougainvillea.
Bougainvilleas, yes. And that
Yes.
cultivar is named what? It's a
This
deep
one
scarlet.
is Burgundy Queen.
Burgundy Queen, that is a beautiful cultivar of bougainvillea. So, and those obviously are a very highlight. They do need as close to full
sun
yes,
as you
if you're
could
going to
possibly-
keep them in bloom, they're going to have to be in full sun. Well, Cary, we appreciate you giving us a little tour around the garden center this morning, and make sure and look Cary up if she's not stuck at a register. She'll be glad to help you. But we're always
Absolutely.
glad to answer questions, and we want to thank everybody who comes out to see us on weekends, particular, and for your patience, because it's a pretty busy time for us. So we're spread a little bit thin, even with the amount of staff we have. So we appreciate Cary coming on today and giving us some insight into what's going on in the greenhouse. So
Awesome.
Anytime.
thank you much.
Oh, can I plug one thing real quick?
Certainly.
Summarizing houseplants. Next Thursday, I believe, Tyler knows for sure, the 22nd, I'm doing a webinar. So we were talking about palms getting sunburned when you put them out into the sun too quickly.
Right.
So we're just going to touch on bringing your tropicals, succulents, what have you, houseplants outside and what you need to do to make that transition easy.
Well, those
for
are
your
good.
houseplants.
There's a whole list of good do's and don'ts. So we're looking forward to what you guys have to share with us and put forth to keep everybody doing their very best with all their plants inside and out. Thanks, Cary.
Thank you.
All righty. Good job. Good job.
Very good job. So
Bougainvillea.
obviously there's
Now,
a
David,
lot.
wait, I forgot to ask her. Is that an indoor plant here in Middle Tennessee?
Well, I mean, typically here you would use them as an outdoor seasonal annual.
Okay.
They are a perennial tropical, but since it's not tropical climate here, you could bring them inside the house, but they would only
They
survive.
tend to run, though. I mean, and
Oh yeah, they'll either make a large bushy form if you cut them back, or if they're in a temperate or a subtropic climate, they'll grow up a wall. And they're in Mediterranean climates. They are spectacular wall coverings. I mean, if you ever go to
Mykonos.
if you ever go to Southern California, you see them used extensively in the landscapes there. Probably to a lesser extent, some in South Texas, certainly into central Mexico, you see them used quite a lot. They are a great plant because they flower just almost continuously throughout,
Unbelievable.
and which makes them really an ideal annual plant for Middle Tennessee to use it during the summer months. Yes, you could dig them up or bring the pot inside over the winter. The trick is that will you be able to give it enough light over the winter to sustain it?
Right. But I mean, if as long as we know that going in, then those of us that are not in the professional plant trade, treat it as an annual. I mean, it's just striking if you can get them established.
If you had a greenhouse setting, you could keep them over. However, if you have a greenhouse, you will quickly understand that it would cost a lot to keep that alive over the winter. So if you only have just a couple of things, it's probably better to let it go and just replant the next year. You heard Cary talking about her 200-pound cactus that she has to wag in and out of the house.
That's 2 carries is what that is. I mean,
yes, at least
2 carries.
At least
yes.
2 carries. So anyway, there's always some thought that needs to be given to what the value of the plant itself is, what it's going to cost to keep it over the winter if you have to do something.
Because that would be real interesting. I'm going to go back out there and take a look at them again, because I've got a feeling that it's probably going to say that it's perennial on the label.
Well,
and if you don't have somebody like Cary or the staff here at Bates, they're going to say, yeah, perennial. Yeah, man.
It's a perennial in a zone 9.
9.
Zone 9 or zone 10, it would be perennial, but we are happy to be
it's not false advertising. It's truth, but it's just not all the information.
It's not true in all places.
Yes.
And for here, it's only really good for outdoor use from about, I would say, the end of this week on. We're going to have
put them out Wednesday.
I would wait until Friday.
Oh, okay. But with these structures that are going up, with the amount of outdoor living areas that are being built, and the arbors that are being done, and people are doing wonderful things with draped tarps these days to give an additional shade in the hardscaped areas. Because people forget that when you put stone or brick down on the ground and out in the sun,
it absorbs a lot of heat.
Does it really?
Okay. And it reflects it.
Yes, it does. So I mean, they end up putting sails over the top of things, and it's a striking look. So
it's not a bad idea to do that, simply because a lot of people, we've got azaleas here behind us, and azaleas will live in the full sun, but if you plant them on the south or west facing sides of a brick house, what you get is you get all that reflected heat off of the sunlight. That really is the problem. It's that heat. They don't like it to be 140 degrees. Can you imagine that? They don't like that.
Well, for a minute or two, it's okay.
If you were going to use these on a south or western exposure, they would need to be a foreground planting, not in the very back. You maybe put some hollies or something, some other maybe yews or some other kind of conifer in behind, and then plant these in front.
So you're insulating your azaleas essentially.
Exactly. You're creating a buffer zone there to let something else take the heat that's more easily adaptable to that heat.
Knockout roses, maybe.
Yeah, but azaleas are not one of those. But they'll take the light, but they can't handle that heat.
And these are encores, so they're repeat bloomers as well.
Correct. This is just their first time around, and the difference between knockout roses and the old time roses is that they do re-bloom, and they'll go through their bloom cycle now, and then the new growth will come out, they'll set bud again, and they'll flower again. You might even get a third flowering out of them. Now here's the trade out. You might think, well, gosh, you get a lot more blooms that way. I don't think you get more blooms. You just get them scattered out over you get fewer blooms over a longer period of time. And the old time azaleas, if you drive around in East Nashville or some of the old neighborhoods, you'll see these shrubs that are 5 feet tall and 10 feet across that are just a solid mass of red or white or pink. And those old type of azaleas are very profuse bloomers, but they bloom all at one time, and you get it all in one shot.
One shot.
These have the ability to spread that energy out over the course of the season, so you'll get probably as many blooms in total. You just don't get them all at one time.
Well, I actually saw there was an article, and I didn't get a chance to really save it, but there was a 100-year-old woman,
right,
or at least 100-year-old woman, standing in front of a 100-year-old azalea that she planted. So she's got to be a minute or two older.
Did you send that out, or I saw
you
that? You
saw that same thing?
I did
the thing,
see that, yeah.
It looked like it was 3 stories tall and about 40 feet wide. It was be something to see. Would be something. You saw the art, so it's not an urban legend.
I want to say it was in
gentlemen.
Augusta or someplace like that. Augusta, of course, where the
Masters.
The Masters is always held every year. They have an extensive amount of azaleas as well as other plantings.
Magnolia trees.
Oh, it's
gorgeous.
It's immaculately kept.
It's almost a botanical garden, and it's not a very big
it's not
facility.
almost. It actually is. I mean, they really there's no expense.
Golf course, man.
It's a golf course. It's a botanical garden that just happens to have a golf course in the middle of it.
Oh, okay.
615
The putting greens were kind of brown last week, though, weren't they?
615-499-6690. That's how you can get in touch with us. If you want to send us a text message, or if you want a voicemail, have you got something over there?
Got a text, and it actually deals with what he just talked about. He's talking about those greens being a little brown.
Yeah.
And Chance wanted to know about how often to water his lawn once it warms up. Now,
It's raining today, so
well,
I
it's
don't
raining
think you
today, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure a lawn needs between an inch and a half of water a week to maintain.
Once you are in the hot part of the season, this time of year, particularly when you're having high temperatures for the last week, we've barely made it to 70 degrees.
Right.
We're having high temperatures. Looks like Wednesday of this week will only be in the mid-50s, the 60s otherwise. So what that means is that when you have cloudy conditions, you don't have the transpiration that occurs and evaporation that you would have in hotter.
Is there such a
sunnier
thing as
days.
anti-transpiration?
Well, there are anti-transpirants that you can spray on plants.
Like Right Guard?
It's not that's antiperspirant. Josh. Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing,
Plants
though, isn't
don't perspire; they transpire. That's just where they naturally give off water vapor. So that's the transpiration thing. That's one of the ways.
Have you ever been around him when he's out there hauling seed during the week? I imagine he's transpiring out there pretty well.
Fairly often.
But it's purely sympathetic transpiration that he's exhibiting.
I'm just showing them how the grass seed gives up its water.
So anyway,
okay.
watering your lawn really is not that much of an issue. If you've got a lawn that you overseeded in the fall, or maybe you just did this spring and it's just coming up, yes, those juvenile plants are going to be a lot more dependent upon the regularity of rainfall, particularly early on. So you need to keep a close monitor on that. But you don't want to keep it soggy wet all the time. Plants' roots grow in search of moisture. And if you keep them wet all the time, it does set up severely, like on cactus, like we talked with Cary just a bit earlier about how sensitive they are to that. But they aren't the only things. All plants, with the exception of things like weeping willows or bald cypress that can literally grow standing in water, most everything else needs to have some time to dry out.
Did Chance say there was fescue or Bermuda?
He didn't say it all.
Okay.
But yeah, deep and frequent waterings. One thing that I was always told is to use a tuna can. A tuna can, like an empty tuna can. So if you're using an irrigation system,
It's only that.
exactly.
If you fill it up.
That's good.
Yeah. And for most people, they'll never put that much water down at one time.
It's like 3 times a week or something.
Yeah. The problem of it, the tuna can theory is that it's going to evaporate out of that can before you get to the next water. So you'll say, I'm not getting enough water on here.
It's got to be dolphin-free tuna too that you do that with anyway. I'm absolutely positive.
So what I've been doing, because I overseed my lawn, I just measured like half an inch.
Yeah, put a mark on there.
Put a mark in
There you
there,
go.
and then I water it for like 30 minutes when it's filled up, and then 2-3 days later, do it again.
Yeah, and as you referenced earlier, better to have less frequent and more thorough waterings. I personally, if you have an established lawn, I'm a water as needed kind of guy, and if it's well established, you don't need to be. The difficulty is that a lot of people have irrigation systems that they have paid really good money for,
and they're going to use them by
They want to see that water fly. The problem of it is that it doesn't always need to be running.
No.
So, and most of these irrigation systems don't have really adequately or properly calibrated overrides that will shut them off when you are having sufficient moisture. So it does require user intervention, or that is to say, restraint.
David Bates, are we ready for our next featurette?
We are, and we've got a new feature. We've got a new. This is not a featurette. This is a hard hitting. Because we're getting ready to move in to the Lowen Report.
The birds follow him around.
Yes, and we welcome Austin Lowen to the program this morning. Austin, great to see you this morning.
Good morning, guys. How y'all doing?
Buddy, what's up?
Doing real good. Now, you may hear a lot of fluff or everywhere else. Yeah, those birds are chirping. I know they're chirping. And it just proves he's actually outside. That's not a green screen behind. It is a green screen, but it's a green screen of actual plants.
Yes.
It is. It's our nursery. I'm standing out in front of the roses today.
Well,
Wow.
So give us a little heads up. We got to see a lot of color out there because we just got roses in. Was it last week that we got those in, Austin?
Yeah, it was early last week. We got them in and took us a couple days to get them placed out, but we've got them set now, and they're bud and bloom is what we call them. So lots of buds, lots of blooms, and they're looking really pretty. A lot of color right now.
So I think there's a lot of confusion about roses, about what is what, if I want a cut rose, if I want a climbing rose, I want a shrub rose. People may be a little fuzzy on the differences. Why don't you give us a little quick overview of what the different types of roses are and what their function in the landscape is?
Okay, cool. I got Cary over here. Actually, I'm going to get her to hold some of these up behind me.
All right.
The first one we're going to talk about is what we're going to call the floribundas. So hence the name floribunda, flora in abundance. So what you're going to see here is, Cary, pull that one up. This one here is called Cinco de Mayo. And what you can see, this has been a really cool rose. It's kind of an off-color red, but kind of different. But like the name says, we got multiple buds on the same stem. So that's the floribunda. That's what we're talking about there. Got a lot of blooms that are going to happen on this single cane. So extremely showy and a little bit smaller.
I want to interrupt for just a moment. This is a clear example of non-truth in advertising. Hoy es el 17 de abril, not el 5 de mayo. So here we are 3 weeks ahead of schedule. It's blooming. It doesn't bloom on the 5th of May, though. In case you don't know,
like a Christmas cactus, they only bloom in February. So,
right. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, but go ahead.
Oh, it's okay. This one probably will be blooming on the 5th of May as well, though. This one blooms a lot. I mean, it's got flower power. I mean, really, really well. It's a good little rose. I brought another one here, which is our classic yellow rose, which is Julia Child, which is probably our best-selling yellow. If you want a disease-resistant, low-growing shrub kind of floribunda rose, this one's really an excellent. It starts off really true yellow in bud, and then it works its way through almost some pink in it as well, and then it finishes almost to a white. So a lot of color there. Like I said, one of our best sellers as the floribundas go.
gorgeous.
As we're working down, I switched over to the hybrid teas, which are probably the most popular that we sell. These are your cut flowers. These are the ones that the florists use for arrangements because most all the time the flowers are born on a single stem. It's just one single big bloom on the end of a stem. And this one's called Peace. This is probably one of the best hybrid tea roses ever developed. And they use this one still to this day to hybridize other roses off of it. They've used this one as this is the parent to so many other hybrid tea roses that have come out. So go ahead.
It seems like Peace and Mr. Lincoln are the two that are old-time roses that are still really as popular now as they have ever been. Now, there literally are thousands of varieties of roses. Yes. I mean, there's no end to it. I want to touch briefly before you go further, to talk about the when you're people who have cut roses, they don't always know how to cut them right. Maybe they don't cut the rose stem back far enough. We'll talk about that for just a moment.
Yeah, you have to take them back pretty far within that cane. So Cary's got another hybrid tea rose that we've got here. This one's Miss All-American Beauty, which is
another
great
one.
Gorgeous.
Oh my gosh, just a huge. This one is really only about half its show. It's still got a lot to open. This one's got an extremely high petal count. On all of these weeks roses that we sell that are grown for us, tell you the petal count on them. This one is a 50 to 55 petal count rose, which is extremely high. So this is going to open up to even bigger than that with a ton of petals in there. And you got to know that you want to cut this bloom before it actually gets to this stage, more when it's still tight in its bud a little bit, and then cut it down further to where it'll fit down in the water into the base of your vase, and it will slowly open up for you and create a much longer show than if you let it fully open and then cut it. So let's cut it while it's still tight in its bud, and then you'll see a lot of show for a long time.
So not quite to the one to its to the front there that is in the full bud stage.
Yeah, that's
too early.
That's a little juvenile there. That's not far enough along.
Too early.
Like that. Yeah.
Yes, this is too early. This is too late. So you want to be in between that. One of that's showing that's just past color. You'll see the bud that has a little bit of color on it. Okay. Once the color just opens and starts to spiral open, that's when we're going to cut that. Wow. So something like this would be kind of where we want to be at.
Right.
once again, this is the Peace Rose, and this just got so much color in it. It's got yellows, pinks, whites, all of it. It's really, really beautiful bloom. And this is another one with a really high petal count in the center. So a lot of show for you there.
Now let's talk for just a moment about care. I know you got some other roses to talk about there, but let's talk about care for just a moment. We were talking about irrigation systems and people using them in their lawns. Probably the worst thing for roses is overhead irrigation. It is a major problem for those. And if you're wanting to grow roses, the use of overhead irrigation is really a major mistake.
Yeah, so detrimental even. Roses are well known for getting a fungal pathogen called black spot, which is specific to roses. And this is spread much, much quicker if you're splashing leaves all the time.
Sure.
So if you do have to water your roses, you're going to water them at the base. You're not going to touch any leaves with those water. Be gentle with it even, just a slow trickle on top. But a nice deep soaking like I had heard y'all talking about, less watering, but whenever you do water, really soak it deep. And also the use of fertilizers within the spring with roses is a real help to get them just living well and hoping to outcompete some of those fungal pathogens that we have to deal with roses.
Now, most of the cultivars that we sell, not all, but most of them are what we refer to as monthly roses. That is to say that they'll flower in a monthly cycle, providing you do a right and a sufficient amount of pruning, and also give them enough fertilizer to sustain that health and growth to be able to reset bud again repeatedly.
Yes, that's true. The use of pruning within the season is very specific to roses. Actually, we don't do that with a lot of plants, but with roses you do. Once their blooms have finished up, some of their leaves are looking rough on top, we need to take those back and we need to prune them up a little bit so we can get a regrowth, like David was saying. And the use of fertilizers to down below will help push that new growth as well.
It's just a real hobby. So I mean, I'm thinking maybe a drip ring around the base of some of the roses, and then that would be
that'd be good. Or a drip type soaker hose works really well. But again,
also just doing it as you see it, like David was saying, water as needed. That's what we do with roses. Roses can find their own water, and like David was talking about earlier, they need to seek their own. We don't need to just keep them wet all the time. Let them dry out in between so they can go seek their own water.
There's another happy customer leaving Bates Nursery right behind it.
One of the great difficulties we have as a seller of roses is displaying them in an environment where we are forced to overhead irrigate.
Right.
Now, what we do, as we did this morning, we will irrigate in the morning time so that it gives you maximum amount of drying time during the course of the day. So the overhead water that we are forced to apply comes at the time of day where has the least negative
impact. Dry.
It's got time to dry during the course of the day. So that's how we deal with that here. The mistake a lot of people will make is they come home from work and they want to get out and work in the garden. I'm going to get out there and I want to see the sprinkler run and have a cool beverage. So, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you don't need to be running it on the roses. And
now, which hand do you hold the beverage in versus the hose?
It depends on if you're a right-handed or left-handed.
Oh, okay.
What else you got, Austin?
I got a couple more I'll talk about. We got a grandiflora over here, and like a floribunda, grandiflora, hence the name grandiflora, large blooms. And they're also born sometimes singularly on a stem, but then also sometimes with a lot of buds on this one as well. This one here I found is called Fun in the Sun. It's kind of a pale pink, if you will, but there's a lot of flower power going to be on this one. Within the next week, you're going to see this just totally lit up. So grandifloras are good when they get just as big as hybrid teas, if not bigger. You can almost, if you don't cut them, they'll end up almost being like climbers. They can get very large, almost needing like a trellis. So I recommend, kind of pruning these back after they get done blooming, and you can keep them a little bit smaller, a little bit more manageable.
Yeah, and they'll be if you fail to do that, what can happen is that you can have a storm or whatever, and with heavy flower set and blooms on there, limbs can get broken out or bent over. So if you can keep that the structure of the plant more compact and well branched, and don't allow those stems to string way out, you're going to have a lot better resiliency against strong storms that may come along during the summer months.
Yeah, most definitely. Rose stems can actually break fairly easy. We have to be very careful when we unload roses out here, because the breakage is something that's real. We have to worry about. So he's totally right. Long stems break a lot easier than short, stubby ones do. Now moving on to this one right here. This is a large flowered climber, which is really amazing. This is a true red, high petal count, beautiful smell. This one's called Drop Dead Red, I believe, which, like I said, is a large flowered climber. And you're going to have to use a trellis or some sort of system behind this to keep these canes up, because like David was saying, if you let these canes just be up and be a climber and big without any support, you're going to get a lot of breakage on that. So invest in a nice little trellis, build yourself one that's kind of fun to do, and let these climb up and just flower, about 3 to 4 times, like Dave was saying, about monthly type blooms. And they're just fantastic for larger trellis type systems, or pergolas, if you will. So really big blooms on this one, and that's just a true red. Yeah, really pretty.
Now, back in the day, Austin, when we used to grow a lot of roses and did a lot of potting of them and pruning, we grew Don Juan a lot, and that one kind of reminds me of that. Is that Don Juan was almost a black red. It had a lot of really dark colors around the edges of the flower. That one doesn't seem to be quite so dark, but it does remind me a lot. Is that a monthly bloomer as well?
This one is, yes. Okay. Yeah, this one is. And Don Juan is still, gosh, as the climbers go, I say it's still top 3 bestseller. It's a fantastic plant. And like you said, when the buds are tight, it's almost got a blackish, tinge to it at the points of it. And then it opens up to a nice, true deep red. Whereas this one is a little bit brighter of a red.
Got a little hint of orange in there to it, a little red orange. So,
Austin, on the climbers, how to prepare them for winter, do you cut them back early, or do you just let them go through and see what happens through the winter?
You're going to let them go true dormant. So you're going to let the frost take care of the leaves and the freeze as it gets colder. Roses can actually hold their leaves a little bit longer than most plants, but let them go true dormant. See the canes, and then yes, over the winter time, you're going to want to go in and get your pruning done. Get rid of all the dead or diseased, dying wood, any wood that's crossing each other, and just kind of open them up and get them into pick your green canes that are the nicest. Take them down about, 2 to 3 feet if you want, and then let them reshoot in the spring, which they will.
Because those are crazy growers too, aren't they? I mean, they go.
Oh, for sure, yeah. They really shoot. Now,
I'm assuming you've also got some shrub roses to show us. And that's
of course,
and that's the rose that for most people who are non-rosarians, anybody can grow a shrub rose because they are, as the name suggests, they're a shrub. So therefore, while they're not non-problematic, they are certainly reduced problems. They're much easier to care for comparatively.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, the best-selling rose on the market right now is the knockout rose. We've all probably heard of that. We got double knockouts. We got pink, red, white, yellow nowadays. We got coral knockout roses. They've changed the game when it comes to roses. They're fantastic. They grow with hardly any issues. They're so vigorous that the black spot can't barely take them over in time. They just outgrow it. Yeah, they almost constantly show color.
The only issue that we see with knockout, or with roses in general, but with knockout specifically, is the rose rosette, and that's the one problem that in mass that has been a problem around the country. However, a rose rosette is a virus. You can dig that affected rose out, which is what you should do, and you clean up, and you can replant back into the spot as long as you have treated the other roses around. And it's mites that spread the pathogen from one rose to the next. So coming while you're still in dormancy, spraying with dormant oil is one of the best things you could do. That makes it really easy, and it's not noxious to the plant or to the applicator, either one.
Yeah, most definitely, yeah. Like you had said, if you get the virus, it's not like you're going to get it again necessarily. It's very possible that you won't. But we've created a monoculture a little bit with knockout roses. We've planted so many because they're such a good plant and so easy to deal with that there's so many around that those seem to be the most affected. Before knockout roses came about, most people didn't have a whole lot of roses. They would have a few, they would just take it slow.
They were so problematic. I mean, honestly, I fell into the trap, but we bought some of the first ones that I remember you guys having, the red ones. We still have them.
Well, they're growing machines.
They're absolutely gorgeous.
And they're fantastic.
Yeah.
You talk about roses that hold their foliage. They barely go dormant.
We had roses at Christmas.
Barely.
I mean, literally, we had rosebuds at Christmas this year. So.
They have both days of dormancy on knockout roses, I'll say, because they barely go dormant, and as soon as it starts to warm at all, you already can see signs of the canes greening up and buds beginning to swell for new growth getting ready to break out of them.
Yep.
Now, one of the other, I don't know if we've got any examples of them on the lot there, but drift roses are another shrub rose that are particularly wonderful simply because they, they give you something that's a shrub rose, but not in such an aggressive growth habit.
Right.
They're able to be managed at a lower height. And knockout roses, the one negative on them is that they can grow so aggressively. You have to really fight them to keep them within bounds. With drift roses, they stay in bounds with a lot less effort.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, we sell a lot of drifts now too, and it's a flower machine though. I mean, it's the same way as knockouts pretty much. They keep blooms almost constantly through the season, but like David was saying, they keep a much slower habit. So you're talking about a 3x3 shrub for the most part, and where you can go in over the wintertime in dormancy as well and take them back down lower, and they'll poof right back to where they were the next spring, and then just constantly blooming for the most part. They do come in waves. It's not a constant bloom, but within a few weeks of a bloom cycle going, you'll see another one starting. So another real good one to use for if you want easy roses.
Yes.
Okay, what's your final thoughts on what people need to be thinking about when they're growing roses in their landscape, Austin?
Oh gosh, just try it. Just it's a labor of love, guys. It's not something that's just simple. If you're a gardener though that's been doing it for a while and you want an extra little challenge and maybe something to do a little bit more than pick out some hybrid tea roses or some old school floribundas, and play with them and just have fun with them, because when they are in show, they're still the most iconic flower on earth.
And just be prepared to do some extra things like spraying, and we talked about some fungus problems and insect problems. There are combination sprays that you can buy for roses that have the insecticide and fungicide already in them, or you can buy those individually and treat specifically for a specific issue that you may be having with them. But with roses, generally speaking, you need to spray, unlike most other things, you need to spray preventatively as opposed to correctively, because they are going to get it. So spray for black spot, spray for aphids, and if you'll do that in advance, you can really keep them nice and clean and really full of enjoyment, because they do bring a lot of color, not just in the landscape, but in the home if you're cutting them and bringing them inside.
All right.
Yeah, most definitely.
Hey, thank you for an informative initial outing of the Lowen Report. Thank you, Austin, and we'll hope to see you again soon.
And that's the way it is.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
That's the way it is.
The way it grows.
That's the way it grows.
That's the way it grows.
That's the way it grows.
Look at him trying to take credit for the line I said earlier. Like, I just came up with that.
Yeah, well,
I didn't try to take credit. I just stole it.
Is that shocking? That's not shocking.
No, it's not shocking at all.
After
it's a good idea.
As much time as you've been around,
He consistently surrounds himself with more talented people to make himself look better.
Kind of like Eddie George.
Hey, by the way, Eddie George, the new coach of Tennessee State University. Go Tigers.
You got that right.
That is, I think if I've ever seen a win-win situation, Eddie was a great player. I have no idea how things will go with his coaching abilities, but I got to believe
Vandy won't play him.
I believe they're going to be tough.
Do you think it's going to be easy for him to recruit people now? I'm Eddie George. Come play for me.
I think that TSU is going to be back to the glory days, and I'm excited for it.
Good football. Good football.
I really enjoyed back when I was a young guy growing up.
Oh yeah.
They were consistently one of the best collegiate teams in America, and
did you ever meet Coach Merritt?
Oh yes.
Oh.
And Coach Gilliam, and had the pleasure of working in both of their homes when I was a young man, and over at Coach Gilliam's house there was he had this son named Joey. He could really throw a football.
Could he? Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we go to input 2 real quick before we get out of here? Because
certainly.
we've been trying to get this in for a couple of weeks. But by the way, we forgot to mention, and we want to thank the Restless for joining us last week. Emily and Rachel really brought the house down.
They were fabulous.
Fantastic. You can see that image.
It'll help if I push the right one.
Well, it would. That's 2.
I haven't pushed the buttons in a while, so I'm a little rusty. But
that's my boy.
And these are the sticks that Michael was referring to.
Right. He's going to drape his sheet directly across those. You need to get you some bricks or some rocks or something to kind of. You might actually get them in maybe move them to the corners, and then where you can drape over them. That'll be plenty sufficient. Or you could do
I think he needs to plant some honeysuckle on that fence.
That's not my fence. I can't do that.
But no, you can plant on your property if it happens to grow on it.
Oh, well, okay.
I mean, you could,
Yeah.
but
Technicalities.
I would not plant honeysuckle on there. I would plant something more like an upright, like maybe emerald arborvitae or something that gives you some. If you're looking for privacy, I mean, your neighbor. The good thing about planting a screen is that if you start with small ones, it doesn't send the message that I need privacy from my neighbor. It's just decorative. And then,
you need to
then
do
all of a
some
sudden-
field.
And
No. Look at
5 or
our
6
neighbor-
years.
Our neighbors are not into landscaping either. You need to talk to this neighbor. I mean, nothing there along this foundation. Look where the foundation vents are in that picture, David. That would be a really good place for a flower bed along that whole side.
It's what you call a
target-rich environment.
Absolutely.
I'll go knock on Cody's door and tell him. So say, by the way, guys, let's put in a flower bed back here.
You got a target-rich environment going on over here. We need
all
to do
the
something
way
about
down.
it.
My goodness, he's got potential.
Good full sun, so it is an area, and it's a situation that is not uncommon around the Middle Tennessee area. So if you're looking for the things to deal with on that, certainly we invite you to come out and see us at Bates Nursery and Garden
Young
Center.
Stevenson there, by the way.
And we'll go ahead and do a little segue here if everybody's on board with that. And we'll talk to you for just a moment about Bates Nursery and Garden Center, which is where we are. And of course, it is it's that time of year, folks. We are wide open. It is crazy busy time. But that said, we are here to help you. And if you have a landscape plan that you have gotten together, I suggest strongly that you come out during the week. The weekends are not the best time unless you're going to be here like right now when we're opening. Unless you're going to be here at the very outset of the day, it's going to be hard to have someone tied up with you and be able to devote their time to you. So, in fairness to you, come out during the week when we're not quite as busy and we've got more time to spend with you. Other than that, we've got everything that you could be looking for: trees, shrubs, ground covers, ornamental grasses, annuals, perennials. Of course, you've seen the tropicals, including
trees.
cacti.
Oh my goodness, I've got trees.
Fruiting trees, you name it, we have it at Bates Nursery and Garden Center. And more than that, we have expertise. We're here to help you get the right plants in the right place the first time, because that's the way we do it at Bates Nursery and Garden Center. We are conveniently located 1 mile north of Briley Parkway here at exit 19 on Whites Creek Pike, and that winds us up.
It certainly does. All righty, ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoyed the show this week. You can listen to it anytime you want to at a podcast. Just go find the At Home Show with Josh, Cary, and David Bates, where you get your podcast stuff, and go to YouTube, look at it there, share it with your friends, hit the bell when we forgot to remind them to hit the stinking bell this week.
Oh, we did, but
But share with your friends, and hey, join us next Saturday morning, because we're going to be here for the At Home Show with